next generation submarine to be called SSN AUKUS. The biggest single investment in Australia's defence capability in all of our history.
And it's an expensive exercise. The bill to taxpayers, analysts have been suggesting between $170 and $200 billion over the life of the program. But the full scale unveiled today forecast to be somewhere between $268 billion and $368 billion.
Someone's profits are others' losses. Those who profit are the least affected, well connected, well protected. Those who suffer most have little choices, unheard voices. For most people it's not funny and things are getting rough. The measures we are taking are really not enough. I find it hard to tell them that we are much too slow in cutting our emissions. It's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Mad world. Mad world.
Just so America can remain the top dog.
US President Joe Biden has approved a huge oil drilling project in Alaska, provoking environmentalists' outrage that it breaks his own promises on climate action. The $12 billion project is about 300 kilometres north of the Arctic Circle and has generated more than 1 million letters of protest to the White House.
The remotest reaches of the United States, but the decision to greenlight oil drilling reverberating far beyond.
Will not just impact Alaska, it will not just impact this country, it'll impact the world.
Energy giant ConocoPhillips has strong local support to drill in the largest single expanse of pristine land in the US. The Willow project will produce up to 180,000 barrels of crude oil per day. That's 600 million barrels over its 30-year lifetime, generating more than 270 million tonnes of greenhouse gases, equal to adding 2 million cars to the road every year. This was Joe Biden in 2021.
This is the decade we must make decisions that will avoid the worst consequences of the climate crisis.
And after campaigning but failing to stop Willow, this was the response of environmentalists today.
He claims to care not only about the climate crisis, but also about addressing environmental justice and addressing the extinction crisis. And yet this project will exacerbate all three of those crises, and it's infuriating.
Saudi Arabian oil giant Aramco has reported the highest ever annual profit by a publicly listed company, much of it attributed to high energy prices in the wake of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Analysts say the $240 billion windfall is critical for the kingdom's plans to expand its influence on global financial and energy markets. Amnesty International has described the profits as shocking.
It is the world's second richest company and largest oil producer. Aramco is pivotal to Saudi Arabia's extensive wealth and power. The state-owned oil giant made a record $240 billion profit last year, a mammoth 47% rise from 2021. It's the latest energy company reporting sky-high numbers after Russia's invasion of Ukraine saw oil prices soar. America's ExxonMobil recorded $84 billion profit, and Britain's Shell with $60 billion.
Scientists are warning the world is on track to warm by 2.4 degrees over the century, the alarming development discussed at the COP26 Climate Change Conference. The new study suggests that even if the 2030 carbon emission reduction goals promised by world leaders are met, the world is still on track for catastrophic warming. Those behind the research are urging governments to set more ambitious targets.
Pakistan blaming wealthy countries for inaction. The country's climate minister taking a swipe at G20 leaders who gathered in Rome just days before COP.
Climate change cannot be wished away by throwing pennies into the Trevi fountain.
7 months after COP26 finished in Glasgow, and the world's leaders tossed a symbolic penny into the wishing well, hoping for the best for the planet, before heading home in their private jets, the people of Pakistan paid dearly for our inaction on climate change.
Our contribution in the destruction of the planet is minimal, yet we suffer the most.
In Mozambique, the past 4 weeks has seen more than a year's worth of rainfall. Scientists are pointing to fossil fuel-driven climate change, making tropical storms stronger.
Good evening. Shocking, sobering and confronting. That's how a long-awaited report into the state of Australia's environment has been described. The 5-year scorecard finds the nation's environment is in what it's called a poor and deteriorating state. In unveiling the report today, Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek announced a new target to protect 30% of Australia's land and oceans by 2030.
A sunburnt country that's bearing the brunt of more and more natural disasters, from the Black Summer bushfires, relentless drought and unprecedented flooding events. Now the State of Environment report painting a bleak picture.
It is a sobering read. In general, most of our environments are in a poor state, and critically, their trajectory is poor as well.
Today, the new Environment Minister sharing that news gathered across the past 5 years.
A difficult, confronting and sometimes depressing story.
Describing the state of the environment as poor and deteriorating. Land temperatures have risen by 1.4 degrees since consistent records began. The nation's biodiversity decimated. Australia has lost more mammal species than any other continent, warning at least 19 ecosystems are on the brink of collapse. Since 2016, some 202 fauna and flora species have been listed as threatened.
The environmental crisis and the biodiversity crisis have been rolling out for some time now, and we really have run out of time.
But not budging on the 2030 emissions reduction target.
On the 43% target, we made a promise to the Australian people. We're going to keep the promise.
Does what this report show you not give you enough of a message to say perhaps we need to reassess this target?
I think this report would give anyone who reads it a very strong message that we need to do better on the environment. We're only going to have one go at this.
If we do not either get very serious regulation of nuclear weapons, or we're on the path to their abolition, the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons as a first step, or very serious restriction of the numbers and functions of nuclear weapons in ways we haven't ever seen, then we are going to be entering a world of global conflict over climate with nuclear weapons.
Someone's profits are others' losses. Those who profit are the least affected. Well connected, well protected. Those who suffer most have little choices. Unheard voices, unheard voices. For most people it's not funny and things are getting rough. The measures we are taking are really not enough. I find it hard to tell them that we are much too slow in cutting our emissions. It's a very, very